welcome to my week 2 NaNoWriMo coverage. I'm in a bit of a better place than I was this time last week. I'm ahead of the ball game with 23,591 words. This is something I came to relatively late in the game. I spent most of the week behind, but I got Veterans Day off on Friday. Thank you for your service, veterans, unrelated to this. And I was able to get in some much needed writing time. Like I've heard from a lot of people at Nano events that I went to this week, it was a little bit of a slower week for more reasons than the usual sophomore slump. For those of us in the US, we had the election, and I'm part of the half of the population that isn't so thrilled with how things went down, and I live in the DC area where a lot of people are in the same boat as I am, and so we've been struggling. And it brings to mind that this is the time when we need to be writing the most. I know that for me, I come to writing because I want to understand empathy, and I want to understand people who are like me, people who aren't like me, how people and ideas work in complex ways, and that this is the way to heal, is through writing and to keep doing what we're doing. But I'm not going to let my rambly thoughts speak for all of this. I'm going to turn to Toni Morrison, who is a well-known, well-respected, well-renowned African-American writer. She's won many awards, including the Nobel Prize in Literature in the 90s. And she wrote in The Nation, actually before the election, but in response to this sort of malaise that some of us are feeling. And this is what she has to say. This is precisely the time when artists go to work. There is no time for despair, no place for self-pity, no need for silence, no room for fear. We speak, we write, we do language. That is how civilizations heal. So I hope you're all continuing with me on this journey with whatever you're writing, with whatever it means to you. It still holds that meaning now more than ever. And so let's move forward. So in terms of write-ins, I did go to the write-in that I mentioned in my last video at Bump and Grind. It's a coffee shop that I hadn't heard of, but it's in my relatively immediate area. And unfortunately, though, I didn't run into anybody. I mean, I was an hour late, but usually these write-ins last for more than that. But that's the roll of the dice. So I was there, and I had my writing stuff, and I started to work on my novella. So that was good. And later in the week, I ended up going to another write-in with one of the people I met last week at the Barnes & Noble write-in. This one was at Caldi's, which was a coffee house that I was introduced to a couple of years ago due to NaNoWriMo again. Since then, it's rebranded into Caldi's Social House, and I hadn't been there for a while, and they really changed the layout and the menu, but I was more interested, I guess, in the layout. It seemed much more open and more inviting environment for writing purposes. So I sat there with her and wrote for a little while near to closing time, and that was great. And finally, I decided this year to go to the DC NaNoWriMo midterm party, basically. It's not a write-in, it's a social event, basically. Social event. It's something I'd kind of been meaning to go to for a while, but it turns out most of the time I'm just not nearly where I should be with my word count, and I'm sitting at home saying, oh, I can't do this. But this Saturday I was pretty much okay with my word count, and I was downtown anyway, so I decided to hop in. It was at the Boardroom, which is a bar in DC that probably a lot of my sci-fi friends are somewhat familiar with, because it relies a lot on drinking and playing board games, which I know is a pastime for a lot of people in my circle. And I just was part of the sitting and drinking wine, or drinks, actually. I don't think it was wine. I didn't actually have anything, so what do you know? But some people brought chocolate and cheese, and like a lot of events with Nano, I've been noticing, they are predominantly populated with women. And that is what it is. You know, I enjoy some lady chatting, and I actually did chat with some people. It really wasn't my usual environment. I had a lot of an easier time chatting at the write-ins, even though thank goodness we were also writing. We were chatting, but then we also wrote. But here we were mostly chatting, but it was also really loud, and I was at the edge of the table, so you know, I almost had to take what I could get, and it was a little more awkward. I mean, I'm really glad I came and I talked with some people, but it was harder to keep a handle on the conversation with the noise and everything else. But what can you do? Still glad I went. So that's about it for me. Next week we go into week 3, hoping to keep the momentum up a bit. And the big thing I'm looking forward to as a bit of a respite, a bit of escapism, is that the Fantastic Beasts movie is coming out into theaters. And that's exciting, so I think I'll go take myself to see that. Hope it won't interfere too much with my word count, but hey, we all have to, you know, live a little, relax a little. So I'll be back here next week with my next wrap-up. I hope you're all doing great with your novels. And even if you're at a place where you don't think you'll hit 50,000 words or don't want to anymore, I still hope you keep writing. I've run into a lot of people who are kind of in that boat. And that really is the most important thing about the month, is just to keep writing, to really put the time and the energy into these projects. So wherever you are, just keep writing. And I'll see you next time. Bye.